Hi, this is Tutor Nick P, and this is lesson 665. Title of today's lesson is the difference between apostle and disciple, and this is a bit of a request video as well. A lot of times there is confusion, especially in the religious sense, because we often hear about the original apostles that followed Jesus. Sometimes they're also called disciples. So even in the religious sense, people ask this question, well, what's the difference? Because sometimes they seem like they're used interchangeably. Okay, anyway, if somebody wants to screenshot it right now, let's get right to it. All right, so let's look at apostle first. One of the original 12 disciples or followers of Jesus who went from place to place to persuade people to become Christians. This is probably the number one use of the word apostle, and this is the religious sense. But now, outside of that, we have a very strong supporter of a cause, reform, movements, etc., who actively tries to spread it. So the word apostle is sometimes used in this way. Even though I will tell you sometimes in this video, you have to kind of separate the religious sense and outside, because if somebody is like a Catholic, sometimes they feel uncomfortable using it in that regular sense. You don't hear it used as much in that way. So they may not use it themselves, even though they've probably read it and seen it. All right, let's continue. The term apostle comes from the Greek word apostolos, okay, meaning a messenger, someone sent to deliver a message. Thus, he or she has a mission. So apostle here, he is one that is supposed to, again, actively spread these ideas, these beliefs. He's on a mission to do this. All right, now, disciple comes from the Latin word discipulus, which means a student, pupil, or follower. So one who is still learning, one who is still getting the knowledge about this. All right, let's continue. In the religious sense, you can get a better feel of the use from the Bible quote, Luke 6:13. When morning came, he called his disciples, and he is supposed to be Jesus here. He called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them, whom he designated apostles. So clearly, anyone that was following Jesus at that time and was trying to understand what he was teaching could be called a disciple. But he only chose 12 of them to be the people to go out and spread the word, to be the messenger. Okay, let's continue. In the Bible, 2 more figures were added to the original 12 to be called apostles. Some other Christian sects may claim there are more. Yeah, well, some may use perhaps some missionaries today to be called apostles, but I think the Catholic Church doesn't do that. But some other ones may use it in this sense too. The other 2 would be Matthias, who replaced Judas after the betrayal. So, of course, we know Judas, one of the original apostles, betrayed Jesus, and therefore, he kind of knocked himself out. Okay. And Saul, whose name was changed to Paul. All right, now, there's also the feeling in the Catholic, that an apostle should be somebody who is more directly chosen by God or by Jesus. So, obviously, the first 12 were chosen directly by Jesus. And there's the feeling that Matthias, because the apostles were prayed and contemplated about, which one to replace Judas, that maybe God was working through them. And Paul, or Saul, originally, he had a vision supposedly from Jesus who kind of directly affected him. So that was, again, feels that God directly chose him too. So in that sense, to be somebody to spread these words. Okay. Let's continue. It is also important to note the Catholic Church does not recognize modern-day apostles. So, again, there might be some separation in some of the Christian sects in regard to this, but the Catholic Church doesn't think anybody in our present-day time should be called apostles. Okay, let's continue. Okay, good. All right. Outside of religion, it is sometimes used to mean a supporter who actively spreads particular ideas or beliefs. Here's an example from the Collins Dictionary. Her mother was an apostle of healthy eating. So again, it can be used in this way, just like we set up here, somebody who's a strong supporter of a cause, someone who actively tries to push these ideas. But like I said before, I think, Christians, or at least Catholics, sometimes are a little uncomfortable using it in this way. They feel that it's a little bit more of a sacred term. Okay. All right, and we got 4 examples here to show just how it's used. Plato was a disciple of Socrates. Yeah, of course. Supposedly he listened to Socrates, he learned from him, and then continued on with philosophy, with that idea of philosophy after Socrates died. And it goes the same way. Aristotle was a disciple of Plato, and he kind of followed on from Plato. So, again, a follower of them. All right, Jung was a disciple of Freud. Okay, again, a student, somebody who learns from them, got their knowledge from them. All of these ones actually went out on their own after that and pushed it more too. All right, number 3, the other 11 apostles chose Matthias to be an apostle to replace Judas, of course, so this is the most basic meaning. And number 4, he was considered an apostle of high technology. So again, just like we said with that Collins use or the second meaning up here. Okay, anyway, I hope now you got a better feel of when we're more likely to use apostle and disciple, and clearly can see some distinction between the 2 terms. Okay, I hope you got it. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.